Hello, hello, hello. Now, Lily, I know you want to be in this video. All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Shauna, and this is my booktube channel. I know I am a little late on getting this video out, but it took some thought because last year was kind of a weird reading year for me. This video, if you don't already know from the title, is going to be my top 5 favorite books that I read in 2023. Like I said, it was a weird reading year for me. I feel like I just didn't read a whole lot of books in general, and then the ones that I did read weren't the best. At least they didn't resonate so much with me. I think something that also kind of contributed to this little bit of a reading slump was the fact that I actually got into comic books. Tony, my husband, got me into reading some really cool comics. I discovered a whole new way of reading, I guess, because comics are reading. And so I kind of got like really absorbed into that whole world. So a lot of what I read last year were a lot of comics and catching up on some series that came out, and then, reading them as they came out when I finally got up to date. So I didn't read a whole lot of like full-length novels last year, but I put together this list of the ones that were my top 5 favorite of what I did read, and they're still really great books, don't get me wrong, but I just wanted to go in with that little notion ahead of time. But anyway, without further ado, let's just get started. Okay, so first up on my list is actually 2 books because it's the first 2 books in the series. And if you couldn't already tell by my shirt, if you can see it, it is for Basgiath War College. And if you're not familiar, well, let me show you. It is Fourth Wing and Iron Flame. I put both of these together because they both were great as like a whole together. But if you are not aware, let me just put these down. If you are not aware, Fourth Wing is about a war college that is training people to become dragon riders. There is a whole war that's going on in this world, and there are different quadrants and different ways of being in the military. And our main character, Violet, has studied her whole life to be in the scribe quadrant, where she is researching history on the lands and recording what's going on in the war and basically being a book nerd. And we all, I'm sure, can relate to that and love it. Well, as we start to see in the very beginning of the first book, her mom, who is a dragon rider, her older sister, who is a dragon rider, and her older brother, who was a dragon rider, are all dragon riders, were dragon riders, and she pushes her into being a dragon rider. She puts her into the quadrant, and she basically has to learn how to survive. She has no physical strength. She is like the smallest person in her class, but she has to learn how to survive and how to make it and try to bond with the dragon and live through it. So it's really cool. Lots of dragons, really cool world building. The main conflict in this, of course, is her trying to stay alive and trying to bond a dragon, while also it's a little bit of a love story. She meets this guy named Zayden, and he is like his father used to be a rebel and was kind of going against this whole war essentially and trying to take down Basgiath and everything like that. So their whole world that they live in. So she meets him, and he is very personnel. Her mom is like the top of the top. So she is trying to avoid him and stay alive from the dragons, but also stay alive against him because she knows he is out to get her. But of course, we know, we love the trope. We all say we don't, but we do. The enemies to lovers is just beautiful in this series. And I won't give away too much about Iron Flame. I won't say what it's about because you kind of have to read the first book to understand. But Iron Flame picks up right where Fourth Wing left off and just kind of continues the story from there. And it's just so good. And this author, Rebecca Yarros, just knows how to leave you on a cliffhanger at every moment. And she takes so many twists and turns throughout both books that you just don't see coming. At least me, I feel like they came out of nowhere for me. But that's why they kind of both made the list and why they're on it together. I just kind of wrapped them up into one. Okay, moving on. The next book that I read, and if you follow me on TikTok, you've already seen my video about this, of how much I absolutely loved this book. But it is Carmilla by, I can never pronounce the name, so I'm so sorry, Sheridan Fenu. And I just found out last night that this is an Irish author. Just throwing that out there. It's great. But my friend Jordan recommended this book to me. She knows that I love vampires, and that's what this book is about. It's very small, as you can see. It came out in like the 1800s, but this actually predates Dracula. So Dracula, we've all been taught, is not the first vampire book. Let that sink in. Dracula is not the first vampire story. So why did they keep this from us? Well, I will tell you of my theories. I don't know for sure why, but these are my theories. So this book, and it's like a really cool cover, and Jordan actually bought this for me because she saw how obsessed I became with it. But it's such a beautiful cover. This is actually a woman vampire, not a male, a woman vampire who seduces only women. She gets them to fall in love with her, to drink their blood and kill them. That's pretty badass to me. So I can see why we weren't taught this book in schools, but at the same time, Dracula is pretty gruesome. If you've read Dracula yourself, you know it's not the tamest of books. It's very old school, it's very classical writing, and so it can be a little hard to read at times because it's in that era. But I promise you, you will not regret it if you read this book. It was so good, and it was just so fascinating to learn that there was a vampire story that predates Dracula. That's just wild to me that we never learned that. But I'm finding out too from TikTok and people commenting on my video that they learned about it in high school. And I'm like, where was this in my high school English class? But I discovered it now. I've read it now, and I am so happy that I did. And thank you again, Jordan, for introducing me to this book. Okay, so the third book on my list is actually a part of a prequel series. So, y'all, I became obsessed with this series. It's so good. So if you've heard of From Blood and Ash by Jennifer L. Armentrout, if you've read that series, then you probably have heard of the prequel series that she started. The first one is A Shadow in the Ember, and I read it for the first time this past year, 2023. It's so hard to talk about some of these books when they're in series or they're part of a prequel if you haven't read any of the other books. And of course, I don't ever want to give spoilers, and I don't ever want to give anything away from any other series or any other books. What I will say about this series: first, you should read From Blood and Ash. It's still a great series. It's still up there for me. It's a good series. It's great world building. I will say, though, that it's not my favorite fantasy series, but it's still good and it's still interesting, and it's a unique take on some mythical figures that we know and love. But this series is the prequel, so it actually takes place like hundreds of years before From Blood and Ash starts. So, like I said, I still recommend reading From Blood and Ash first because it does a lot better world building, whereas I feel like this prequel series kind of throws you into the world expecting you to have already read the other series and know how this world works. I will also say that there are a lot of like little Easter eggs in here that are kind of thrown in there that throw you for a loop if you've read the other series. So I highly recommend reading the other series first. Y'all, this love story is like one of my favorites I've read in a long time. Like, this is, I don't even know how to describe it, but it follows our main character, Serafina, and they call her Sarah, and she is destined to become the maiden. And if you've read From Blood and Ash, you know what I'm talking about. But it's a really cool world. I don't know how much more I can say about it. It's about Serafina and Nyktos, who is the primal of life, and they just have an amazing story, an amazing love story. And when you read From Blood and Ash, we only know so little about Nyktos, and so you get to see his origin story a little bit more and where his kids came from, because you read about his kids and grandkids in From Blood and Ash. So you get to see a little bit more into how, like, their love story and how they came about to be a couple together. And it's beautiful. I just love these characters so much. And I think she just did such a good job with this prequel series that it just blew the other one out of the water for me. Like, this one is my favorite over From Blood and Ash by far. Okay, so the next one on my list is actually the second book in that prequel series, A Light in the Flame. So this one actually picks up, again, right where the first one left off. So you are not left hanging. I mean, a little bit here and there. But she does a really good job of just picking it up and running with it. And again, you're taking on some twists and turns, and you're finding out more information about each of these characters, and you're just taking on another wild journey through this book. And I am so excited because I just got the third one. It just came out a couple of months ago. I know I'm a little slow to get on it, but that is next on my list, and I'm so excited to jump into that third book and see where that one is going to take us, because I already know it's going to be another wild ride, and I just cannot wait to see these characters again because I have missed them so much. Okay, so the fifth and final book, I guess it's not just one book. Again, I put a series on here. I'm sorry, you guys. I don't actually have the physical copies. I really want to get them, but I listen to them on my Scribd app and listen to the audiobooks. So I flew through these. I never knew I would like this kind of thing. So I will tell you what it is, and I will reveal. And I might put a little, what's it called? An image here for you up in the corner. Please do not mind my cat. She is running down the stairs like a maniac. The Broken Bond series by Bree. This series, there's, I believe, 6 books in total. Yeah, I want to say 6 books. This series is super, super, super spicy and smutty. So if you don't like that kind of thing, I really encourage you not to pick this series up. However, I will say the story is so good. So the spicy scenes and everything are great, but the story itself, just like, I came for the smut and I stayed for the story, if that tells you anything, because she just did such a good job of crafting this world and these characters, and I was invested in every single one of them. So what it's about is our main character named Oleander. They call her Ollie. Lily, you are jingling everywhere. Do you want to be in this video? So our main character, Oleander, they call her Ollie. She is, let's just start with the world itself. So this world it's a fantasy novel and it's a fantasy series, but it's set in our modern day world. So think of like New York and Washington and, all of those types of cities. I believe they're located in Oregon. I want to say Oregon or Washington. They're somewhere on the West Coast there. And you have the gifted community and you have the non-gifted community. And the gifted community, they each have their own individual gifts, for lack of a better way of describing that. So everybody can do something a little bit different. Everybody is different. But the gifted community, there's such a class system. So the gifted community, a lot of them are wealthy and really well off, and the non-gifted are kind of looked down upon and usually in the lower class. So Oleander is part of the gifted community, but you find out that she has run away. She has not wanted to be a part of this whole system of people being put into bond groups. So you have a central bond, the main person in the group, and then you will have, it could be a different number. It could be 2 or 3 or 4 bonds that you bond with. So think of it like one girl and like 3 or 4 guys all bonded to one girl. And it's like a marriage system in a way, but not really marriage, if that makes sense. And once you sleep with your bond or your bonding, both of your powers become heightened. And that's how the gifted community remain kind of on top, essentially. So that's like the whole story. So like I said, you come in for the smut because you're expecting it. You're expecting like her to be sleeping with all of these guys and like all of her bonds and having these really cool badass powers. Well, she wants no part of it. She knows a lot more than she's letting on and a lot more than we know as the reader at first. And I will say the first 2 books are very, 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 very tame. There's like hardly like nothing in it. But by the end of it, there's a lot. There's like a high level of smut. So I'm just warning you now. But I will say that, yeah, this series was just so good at crafting this really unique world. And I never thought I would be into this type of like why choose genre, which is something new that I learned last year. I will say that. If you're not familiar, why choose is literally what it sounds like. Why choose just one? So it's about one person having like multiple partners. So that's a new genre that I discovered that I actually kind of enjoyed, and it was really good. But like I said, I'm rambling. This series was really good. The world was really unique. The story just kept me going. The plot itself was great. And I felt that all of these scenes and the smuttiness and the spiciness and stuff actually helped propel the story forward. I am not a big fan of just reading smut to read smut. I need it to have a purpose. Like, if we're going to have it in there, it needs to propel the story forward somehow, some way, or give me an insight into these characters a little bit more. And that's exactly what this series did. So there are 6 books in total in this series. If you're interested, you should definitely check it out. I highly, highly, highly recommend it if you're into that kind of stuff. But like I said, the story was just, it blew me out of the water. I was so surprised at how good this story actually was, which is why it made my top 5 favorites of 2023. All right, so that is it. Those are my top 5, and I gave you a little bit of extra favorite books of 2023. Like I said, it wasn't the best of reading years for me, but I still read a lot of really great books, and these still deserve the top 5 list for me. Whether I read a lot of great books or not, they were still fabulous, and I recommend them all to everyone. If any of them interest you, I definitely recommend checking them out. If you want to follow me, I would greatly appreciate it. I give more content about books I've read, books I like, books that didn't really resonate with me, and I just love to talk about books. So if you want to subscribe, I would greatly appreciate it. Stick around, watch my YouTube channel. I also have a TikTok channel where I make a lot of bookish videos as well, and cool content over there. My husband and I also go to a lot of cons, so I like to put that type of content there too. I also have a Bookstagram page you should go check out. I will have all of those links down below in the description so that you can check everything out. I will also link all of the books that I talked about in this video in the description as well, in case you're interested and you want to check them out. I highly recommend it. But I guess that's it. Until next time, I will see you guys in my next video. Thanks so much.